Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast from May 20th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is Hour 1 of 2, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, and to do so on your radio in the traditions of our founding fathers. Yes, indeed. We use the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America, as our guide. As you know, we reject revolution. Unless it's a Jesus revolution, then we're in, because we follow the Prince of Peace. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. We got a lot to cover today and very little time to do it. Yesterday, of course, we had on Dr. Scott Bradley first, doing a phenomenal job as always. We talked about drag queens in Christian schools. It's an article put together by Matt Staver over at Liberty Counsel, and they say the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals is now reviewing our case. Zinsky versus Liberty University. This case will decide whether Christian schools and universities can be forced to hire drag queens and gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, everything they disagree with, everything that's fundamentally against their religion. I'm the same way. I'm a Christian and believe the same. They say, quote, we will not allow the ACLU to basically steamroll this Christian school or any other, because if the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgenders win, no Christian institution will be safe. If we lose, universities, schools, and yes, even churches will be forced to promote the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender agenda. In our 36 years, Liberty Counsel says, we have won 37 cases before the Supreme Court and countless other cases before state and appellate courts. We fully expect this case to progress to the Supreme Court. Zinsky is represented by the ACLU and their multi-million-dollar endowment fund. And anyway, they have over $500,000 in, anyway, they got all kinds of money, I guess, is the main point from Matt Staver, right? It's crazy. I guess it's a $500 million endowment is what it is. I wanted to make sure of that before I said it on the radio. A $500 million endowment, yeah, to fuel their anti-Christian attacks. So it's an epic battle, to say the least. Good for Dr. Scott Bradley joining me on that topic. Trump posted to Truth Social, him and Melania are saddened to hear about Joe Biden. And CNN said, hey, good for Trump being kind to Joe. I don't know. I want to get into that a little bit more as the broadcast unfolds, this idea that now Joe Biden has cancer. I mean, I agree with the civility idea. I agree that it's not really time to, attack Joe. I get it. At the same time, justice must be served. Accountability must have sway. I'll get to that as the broadcast unfolds. Meanwhile, covering yesterday's show, Kash Patel announced plans to relocate 1,500 FBI agents from the, quote, J. Edgar Hoover building, aiming to decentralize, they say, the FBI. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not excited about having FBI agents distributed all over the country. So they used to be 2,000 miles away in Washington District of Criminals. Now you're going to say they're going to have an office in my state or in my region or whatever the case may. Okay, I'm not interested in that. I want to defund or decrease the funding for the FBI. I want to reduce the size and scope of the organization. I don't want to just distribute the organization and their belligerent violation of checks and balances across the country. In other words, I don't want the FBI to come to a theater near me. Do you? Anyway, there you have it. Anyway, great news, Dr. Bradley pointed out. It's all about redemption. Pete Rose, shoeless Joe Jackson, and others reinstated by the MLB. That's the baseball group, right? Anyway, great stuff first hour of the show. Second hour, we had on Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org, doing a phenomenal job. And we highlighted an incredible article. Quote, what did Trump find in the Middle East last week, writes Ron Paul. Answer, the Iraq war was based on lies. The U.S. intervened in Libya, Syria, and other countries. And none of it helped, folks. That's the problem. It didn't help Israel. Didn't help the U.S. Didn't help anybody. Israel, believe it or not, is conducting military operations against several countries in the region simultaneously. But the problem is the world increasingly is condemning Israel's aggression against its neighbors. See, this war stuff has got to stop. This military-industrial complex is out of control. Yeah, they're going to spend $1 trillion on military, on the military-industrial complex. When are they going to come to their senses and reduce spending? Syria has been overrun and is now controlled by the same Al-Qaeda that the U.S. government supposedly spent 20 years fighting and stopping. Yeah. It's predictably exploded under this group. It isn't any better. See, the more we seem to be in wars to promote peace, the more wars we end up with, it seems. The more dollars and cents we spend that we don't even have, and the loss of life continues. The lesson that President Trump should take from this is that it has been U.S. interventionism in the Middle East that has caused these problems. They've produced these, quote, poison fruits, if you will. His wise military disengagement from Yemen should serve as the U.S. model for the region. Okay, we don't need endless war cries from these hawkish folks. It's got to stop. Anyway, there's a great article written by Paul Droghew. Trump skewers neoconservative interventionists' foreign policy. Anyway, Trump doing a pretty good job backing away from some wars. He needs to back away from a whole lot more, though. President Trump announced that he plans to lift sanctions on Syria. I think that's a good start. I think we've got to diplomatically work on this. You know, we can have peace through peace, not peace through war. How war propaganda has fueled American foreign policy for a century. Ryan McMakin writes an incredible article about that. We talked about the worst propaganda in U.S. history is the propaganda used to crank up support for a variety of unconstitutional wars, resulting in the deaths of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of innocents. That's the problem. Anyway, there you have it. They say that the propaganda and the manipulation is what lets Americans sit on the sidelines and lets this war machine continue around the world. Caitlin Johnstone over at LouRockwell.com wrote a great article, highlighted this. How to make your mind harder for the propagandists to manipulate. That's a great point. And Lowell Nelson asked me, how do I do that? Because I follow the Prince of Peace. And I know that going after enemies around the world, chasing enemies into unknown lands, is pretty much a forbidden deal, scripturally speaking. Right? Peace is the answer. And I don't believe we can have peace at all costs. I'm not that naive. But I am cognizant enough to say, hey, we can't just think war all the time. First off, we don't even have the money, right? Anyway, then we finished with Lowell Nelson on a good news point. He had the organizing convention for the Republican Party in Utah, and he said, we voted on paper ballots and counted them by hand. This we haven't done for over a decade. The best news is we were able to end on time. That's significant, in my opinion, right? Anyway, there you have that. There's only one way to eradicate Mexican drug cartels. An article written by Jacob Hornberger. I love Jacob's articles. And for the most part, I think they're right on. But he basically says, hey, you got to just legalize all drugs and and you got to get, the drug war stopped and everything else. And I think there's two extremes here. One is to crack down on every drug all the time. Somebody smokes marijuana and by golly, they're in prison forever. Okay, this is crazy. But, I don't want to just end the war on drugs 100%, make them legal, get the government. Pretty soon you'll have government subsidy of drugs. Oh, you've already got that in a lot of municipalities. I reject that. See, I think what we need to do is just say, hey, the using of drugs isn't necessarily illegal, but the distribution of drugs, the dealing of drugs, the cartel, hey, there's got to be a line drawn somewhere. Where is it, and how do we deal with that, huh? Great questions, right? All right, hang tight. More in seconds. Liberty Roundtable Live.
Abby Johnson was once director of a Planned Parenthood clinic in Bryan, Texas. After a moral crisis, she quit, and now she campaigns against what she once endorsed.
They implement abortion quotas in all of their clinics.
What do you mean quotas?
You have to perform a certain number of abortions every month. One of the reasons that I left...
Are they explicit about that?
Yes. It's in your budget, right there on the line item. One of the reasons I left Planned Parenthood was because in a budget meeting I was told to double that abortion quota. And for me, as someone who had spoken to the media and had said, we're about reducing the number of abortions, we're about, prevention, all of these other services, I was shocked to hear
since you actually worked at a Planned Parenthood, give us some sense of the relative number of abortions.
Okay, abortions, Planned Parenthood provides over 330,000 abortions a year. They are the largest single abortion provider in our country.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at CSPOA.org. That's CSPOA.org.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman, hard-hitting talk at your fingertips always when I'm on the radio, that's for sure, right? There's so much going on in the news, it's hard to even break it all down. Joe Biden, they say, likely had prostate cancer the entire time he was president. That's what experts and cancer experts and doctors and everybody else told the Daily Caller. This is very, very interesting, folks. Biden likely had prostate cancer the whole time, say all kinds of experts on the topic. Doctors who spoke to the Daily Caller indicated that, hey, metastastation, I don't even know how to say that word, metastastation, anyway, basically from prostate cancer to the bone, typically takes at least 5 years, they say. It's not credible that we're hearing of his, quote, disease for the first time because he was having difficulty urinating and then they found the cancer. That's just not credible. That just doesn't track. Dr. Stephen, I think it's Quay is how you say it, Quay, Quay, Stephen Quay, a physician, a scientist, and a member of the American Association for Cancer Research, told the caller. So there you have it. We've been lied to by Joe. And the bottom line is that it's a trust factor, right? And not only have we been lied to by Joe, the other question that I have is who in Congress and who in the White House knew all this too? Was it just the doctor? Did nobody know? What gives with all that? It's a big, big hanging question. And they used to talk about hanging chads in 2000 when it came to the elections, right? Now we're talking about these questions. It's like, what on earth is happening? Okay? Anyway, it's a sad tale. Well, without further ado, let's welcome Sam Anthony founder, president, CEO of yourNEWS.com. Welcome to Liberty Roundtable Live, sir.
Hey, how are you, Sam? Good to be here.
I'm doing very well. I apologize for some of the mix-ups a little bit here. I'm just going to take the blame for all of it. How's that?
You know what? Better you than me, but I wasn't even a big deal. I wasn't sure what time I was going to be on. I thought, okay, 10, 11, whatever it is, but this is perfectly fine, man. I'm always glad to be here.
All right. I want to take a sidestep really quick so people can know who you are, and then we'll back into this story with Joe Biden for a second here, because it's really riveting in my mind what's happening here. It's a trust factor. The issue is honesty. But I digress. Sam, how'd you get into the news business, first of all?
You know, me and a couple guys believed that the internet was going to transform the newspaper industry. This was years ago, and so we...
Boy, how did that turn out prophetic, right?
Yeah, right. Well, now I'm the only player in my space of what I do, Sam. So, ultimately the legacy media is not going to survive. It's not a secret. Everybody knows it. So ultimately what we do will end up replacing the legacy media. And for your audience, the domain is yourNEWS.com. So I'm the local newspaper in every city in America with public participation and a monetization model for news reporters all over the U.S. And we are onboarding news reporters daily. But anyway, that being said, go ahead with what you were going to say.
So let's talk about this a little bit. So you put together a website that's very unique technology-wise. It's national or global by nature of the internet, right? But yet you're saying you have the ability to scale down to the local city. Let's talk about that for a second, because that's unique in and of itself. It used to be, hey, city by city newspapers in a silo told the story. Then it was, hey, the internet took over and everything is a global discussion. The truth is it's both, right?
Well, for me, it is, what we do, because look, all news is local somewhere, Sam, right? It doesn't matter if it's,
Amen.
A bomb going off in Miami, it makes national news, but it happened in Miami, right? So, all news, happens somewhere. So what we are, just think of me as the local newspaper in every city in America with the USA Today wrapped around it, right? So I'm the daily. And what we are is, so I'm clear, is a news content distribution platform. Our website would look like any news website, like the Miami Herald, Chicago Tribune, the Arizona Republic, it doesn't matter. But we have massive scale. We could publish content to a city, a county, a market, state, regional, or national, which is how all news gets delivered. So like the example would be, if it's somebody's Little League game, it's going to be in the sports section for whatever city that is, right? Boca Raton, Schaumburg, Illinois, it doesn't matter. If it's the high school football game, that's going to be sports news for the market, and market is defined by television DMAs, which, you know what that is, right? Designated market area for what you watch, Fox, CBS, or ABC.
Yeah, and most of the time those are protected markets, just so people understand there's exclusivity agreements and all kinds of details surrounding that designation you're highlighting.
For the networks, right? But for me, we just have our system set up so whatever the TV.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. This is an important deal. So for the networks people, so these contracts in reality are obliterated by the new media taking center stage, Sam.
Well, they're completely irrelevant to me. I mean, I just distribute content based on geographical relevance. That's it. So
isn't that a blessing and a half, people, to think that all the contractual gatekeeping thugs with all their contracts can just fly a kite and we circumvent it all with the new media taking center stage because of the internet? That is something that's revolutionary, sir.
Well, it is. I mean, look, I'm the only player, and look, Sam, you know this. The media has been the problem, right? I mean, let's call it the way it is. I mean, if the media had been telling the truth about
Joe's healthy as a horse, that kind of stuff, you mean?
Oh God, I mean, exactly, right? If they were telling the truth, none of the stuff we ever saw would have existed. But the truth is, I used to say, well, who the hell's paying them to do this? Because nobody would lie like this for nothing. And then it turns out USAID was spending billions of dollars to the mainstream media, right? There
yeah, the joke's on you. You're paying Sam. I'm paying Sam. Everybody's paying, whether you know it or like it or agree with it or not, you're paying the piper for sure to do your own demise, right?
Well, this is what they're going to hate, because platforms like, what we do, we put the power of the press in the hands of the people, and they're completely disgusted by that, number one. Number two, we allow what we call citizen journalists to be able to sign up and become a local news reporter and share in the ad revenue in their community. So you could take somebody, this is what makes them nuts. You could take somebody that's already going to the high school football game or is already going to all the city council meetings or school board meetings because they're proactive in the community. That person become your next news reporter. All that person has to do is take notes, bring it home, write a story, or put it into AI to formulate something that they want, and then share that out to the community, and that's your next news reporter. So it allows everybody to participate in the news, and it's what the people want. If you want your kid's Little League game published, we could publish it, right? That's the whole key to this, putting the power to press in the hands of the people. So the future of news will be most likely a global media giant by zip code, right? Because like all tech companies are, global, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, eBay. So, and it'll have a social component where the public can interact and share in the narrative, along with a monetization model like YouTube, where news reporters share in the ad revenue in a self-service ad platform where Joe's Pizza could buy an ad and target it to one zip code and everywhere in between. So what I do will replace the legacy media. I didn't know that's what you brought me on here to talk about, but I'm happy to tell you about it simply because, it's kind of a big deal what we do. And, like I said, the mainstream media has been the problem. They're not going to survive. What I do will replace them 100%. So it's either going to be me or somebody who creates a product just like it. And right now we're the only players.
And ladies and gentlemen, just so you understand, what we're talking about is it used to be the gatekeeping news, and then, hey, it kind of wound down purchasing, manipulating, merging, whatever, to where there was almost like only 6 big players controlling the news for everybody. The problem is the internet took over, their gatekeeping status went away or is being challenged big time, and now it's a matter of ecosystems. And so that, you've got Jeff Bezos, hey, he wants to be in the media, so he builds a whole ecosystem. You've got Elon Musk doing the same thing. You've got Donald Trump doing the same thing. Everybody wants a piece of that pie. The problem is, once you go into, or, get drafted into one ecosystem, so to speak, it's almost impossible to break free and get into another one because of the way they tie it to monetization, etc. The beautiful part about yourNEWS.com that I see is, you built the technology, Sam, and you own the distribution and capabilities, but everybody can participate in yours in a different way because you can become the citizen reporter now. So now the gatekeeping is gone. The infrastructure is there. The monetization can be shared in many ways. People can participate. It's a whole different ecosystem than everybody else is building, right?
Well, completely. I mean, but you hit it on the head. People think of YouTube, right? So, YouTube, we're talking 20 years ago, 25 years ago. YouTube didn't exist when it broke onto the scene. People's like, oh, I want to be a broadcaster. I want to talk about golf, or I want to do sports broadcasting, or I want to be a political broadcaster, or I want to do a cooking show. Well, what spawned from that? Okay. There's the cream rose to the top. So you have some people that make 7 figures a year, but pretty much, Sam, 99.9% of the people on YouTube never work for any network TV station. Agreed?
That's right. That's what I mean by the world's a changing.
And my point is why can't, if you're somebody who's articulate, who could write, and you're already at the city council meeting, why can't you report on what happened and share it with the community? The answer is you can, and you could get paid for it. So it opens up a whole new revenue stream for new people.
And now let's stop you there for a second, Sam Anthony. Not only can citizen reporters deliver, the mainstream press, the gatekeeping thugs of yesteryear that are simply rendering themselves irrelevant because of their dishonesty and their manipulation of the facts and their gatekeeping, they tried to make a play and say, well, citizen reporters can't get it done. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the experience. They don't have the wherewithal. They don't have the mojo we have. They're not professionals. And that's what they tried to claim. And they've lost so big, it's not even funny. Now the clowns of the mainstream press have been relegated to the yesteryear stack of nowhere land, and the new media is taking center stage. I started this back in 92 talking about this very stuff. In 2009, I built my own network because somebody tried to kick me off the air. And now, Sam Anthony taking the world by storm with yourNEWS.com. We'll talk about it more in seconds. You're listening to the one and only hard-hitting Liberty Roundtable Live.
Protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. This morning finds President Trump on Capitol Hill. He's lobbying lawmakers on behalf of his big, beautiful bill, hoping to win over Republicans who are skeptical of the multi-billion-dollar tax cut and spending package. Although he has voiced frustration with the lack of progress in efforts to end the war in Ukraine, the president is not giving up on the peace process.
We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made.
Mr. Trump spoke shortly after talking with his Russian counterpart. He says Kiev and Moscow have agreed to begin ceasefire talks without delay.
The president announced the Russia-Ukraine negotiations after a 2-hour phone call with Russia's Vladimir Putin. He described the tone and spirit of the conversation as excellent. In a social media post, the president said he had a follow-up call with Ukrainian President Zelensky and several European leaders. And he noted that the Vatican has expressed interest in hosting the negotiations. Donald Trump ended his statement by saying, "Let the process begin." Greg Clugston, Washington.
The central U.S. has been slammed by another round of tornadoes after 4 days of heavy weather that left more than 24 people dead. Lonnie Nance lives in tornado-ravaged London, Kentucky.
Hey, buddy, it was just a terrible thing. I hope nobody never has to go through it. And I hope everybody's praying for all of these people.
At least 4 tornadoes confirmed in Oklahoma and Nebraska last evening. Thousands lost power in several states. Many homes lie in ruins. New Jersey's top federal prosecutor charging Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver with assault. This follows a skirmish with federal officers happened outside an immigration detention center in Newark, New Jersey. Wall Street, the Dow is down 75 points, NASDAQ off 117. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Mike Gallagher here, host of the Mike Gallagher Show. If you know me, you know I only put my name behind people and companies I trust. When it comes to mortgages, I trust Mike and Brian at Fellowship Home Loans. They're not just friends. They've done loans for me, my family. I've seen firsthand how they treat every client like their family. And these days, that personal touch really matters. With the cost of everything up, you might be looking for ways to free up cash. Maybe you're thinking about a cash-out refi or HELOC to finish some home projects, consolidate debt, or just get ahead financially. Fellowship is a full-service direct lender, not a broker. They cut out the middleman. That means faster decisions, fewer fees, and less stress. Whether you're buying your first home, downsizing, or refinancing to get some breathing room, they'll tailor fit the loan to your life. Get started at fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
As a parent, is receiving a faith-based, character-focused education for your children difficult to find? Do you believe that godly principles should be a central component in your child's education? Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character. For over 40 years, American Heritage School has been educating both hearts and minds, bringing out academic excellence. This is the school where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. With American Heritage School's Advanced Distance Education Program, distance is no longer an issue. With an accredited LDS-oriented curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade, your children can attend from anywhere in the world. American Heritage School will prepare your child for more than a job. It will prepare them for life. To learn more, visit American-Heritage.org. That's American-Heritage.org.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Hard-hitting talk at your fingertips. I'm Sam Bushman. I got Sam Anthony with me. Man, great name, Sam, by the way. yourNEWS.com, ladies and gentlemen. You got to check that out. We'll get into all the details. But I really want to highlight this. I started talking about Joe Biden right before Sam jumped on. And I did because Joe Biden literally lied to the American people for 4 years. And he literally either lied to the White House and to the doctors and they didn't know, as they claim, or they did know and they participated in the lie. The bottom line is honesty is the issue. And the mainstream press for the last 40-plus years has been lying to the American people, so much so to where, hey, we don't trust them anymore. It's been exposed. I've been at this since 1992, people. Talking about the new media taking center stage, talking about yesteryear media is gone. And then Donald Trump jumped aboard and, man, it went viral from there. So I'm not really looking to take credit. Many of us have seen this. Sam Anthony, chief among them, yournews.com. And by the way, I write articles for Your News because I'm just your average citizen journalist that the mainstream press said could never make it, couldn't be trusted, couldn't be. Well, now we're beating them at their own game. Anyway, it's something quite impressive to say the least. Sam Anthony, I want to talk about this Joe Biden thing. To me, this is, it borders on criminal. If this guy's literally got this illness, it's not safe for the nation from a national security point of view to have this guy be the president of the United States with cancer. Just think about our enemies getting a hold of news like that and holding it over his head. Or I'm just telling you, this is unacceptable. And people seem to be admitting the truth right now, but it doesn't do any good. It's too late and $1 short. And what we really need to know is who knew what when, right?
Exactly. I agree. So, the question is, like you've been saying, I mean, the legacy media has just been lying through their teeth about everything, and they are the problem. And that in itself, if they were telling the truth, none of this stuff would have existed. But the simple fact of the matter is, you got to wonder, is Joe lying? Does he actually have cancer, right? And if he did, this is not something that's brand new, because you don't get to stage 4 cancer in a week or two. I mean, this has been around for a while, which means everybody would have known, and the only thing they did was just cover up all this stuff. So I'm really interested, and I hope they could really get to the bottom of this. But the question is, what are the consequences going to be? Because have you ever noticed that there's never any consequences for all the crimes these people commit?
Well, that is the quintessential point, ladies and gentlemen. And to me, if there's no consequences, there's no value in telling me over and over how horrible everything is and how dishonest they've been and how much money they've spent and how manipulative they've been and how criminal they've, how criminally minded they've acted. And unless there's going to be some fallout from that, consequences, repercussions, what good is it to tell me about that? It just ruins my psyche and makes me think there's no hope for the country. Okay, that's what they want. They don't tie anything to solutions either, Sam.
No, nothing. I mean, look, I've been a little frustrated like everybody else, watching what we had to witness for the last 8 years. And, you get to the point where you're like, enough is enough. I mean, this is just way too much. So I'm hopeful that, with all this stuff that Doge has uncovered, that, they're going to follow the money and there's going to be arrests made. I mean, look, everybody hears the same things. I mean, I listen to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino when they're talking in press conferences, and, they're saying that the arrests are going to be coming. So you have to have faith and say, okay, it's going to take time to follow all the money, to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. But, how long is it going to take? And I'm going to say probably to the end of the year, I would think. I mean, this stuff has to take some time. I talked to Mark Fincham the other day, who's a former law enforcement, Senator Mark Fincham.
Yeah, Mark Fincham, dear friend from Arizona.
Yeah, he told me he goes, Sam, it takes a year to put this stuff together. And I went, okay. So, they've been working on it. But, once the thing is, there's been so much theft and corruption. And there's been, like you saw the thing with Doge when the Fox News guy was there. For some reason, he just drawn a blank where they had the boardroom.
Yeah, we're not really interested in their names anyway, because they're yesteryear, and they've been, quote, the conservative guys that say we report you to side, and they lied too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but did you hear what Musk said? He said, not my numbers, this is government numbers. For all these NGOs, only 10 to 15% of the money actually goes to where they say. 85 to 90% never leaves Washington.
Which means it's an absolute dishonest racket and people should go to jail.
It's called money laundering. It's basically, we're going to give $10 billion to teach chimpanzees how to have gay sex, and which is just a front. And then a small portion goes to somebody who is, yep, here's a couple of chimps, and we're trying to get them to see if they have sex with each other. And the rest of the money gets spread out amongst all of them. And if you wonder why you have some of these politicians that have been, working, making 174 grand a year, that own homes that are north of 10 to 15 million paid for cash, there you go. I've come to the conclusion that even they don't think what they're doing is criminal. That's how blinded these people are.
Here's what they think. They think there's a two-tiered justice system, and they think they're above the law. They also think they don't believe in God, so I can't say God's gift. They believe they're somehow installed over the people for this omnipotent reason that they have to save us from ourselves, and they genuinely believe in global government. They believe in communist principles. They believe in a godless society where, having children and families are irrelevant. Everything should defer to the state. They literally believe this stuff, and we literally installed them to be in charge of our lives in every facet of our lives. So to unwind this is a huge job, and that's why it takes every citizen journalist in the country, Sam.
Yeah. And by the way, here's what I will tell you. Want to unwind it? Remove all the money, 100% of it. They're not going to stay. They got to go find another racket. That's what they'll end up happening. So that's what really needs to happen. They need to remove all the money from these people. And that will cause them all to leave, because what are you governing? You mean I don't get paid to do this? No, you don't. This is called a public service.
Yeah, not only do you not get paid to do this, it costs a pretty penny to do this, people.
Yeah. So, that's how you get rid of them. Just remove all the money. You don't need any money to do this. Okay? Anybody can do your job better than you. So, no, we don't pay for people to do this. And then they could leave. So there's your unwinding. If you ask how to unwind it, you just remove the money, and they'll all go away, because there's no reason to stay anymore. It's like taking all the crack out of a crack house. You want to remove the crack whores? Get rid of the crack. There's no more. Nobody will be there.
Well, and it's interesting. It's interesting when we drill into this too. Not only do you got to remove the money, but man, they've got lawfare in every way under the sun to where it's very difficult to remove the money. President Trump has tried to defund this and to shut this down and to hold this money and this and that, and all he gets is nothing but a bunch of lawfare and a bunch of thug judges that think they're in charge of everything. We need to impeach those people.
I couldn't agree with you more, but the first step is don't even bother listening to them. Yeah, we don't agree with this. This is from the President of the United States, and this is something that we don't see you as part of this, and we're not going to abide by it. But you could take it up with whoever you want, and we'll deal with that people at the time. I don't even know why he's even listening. Well, it's all going to be thrown anyway. What's the difference? I mean, if they're overstepping their bounds, why bother listening?
Well, not only are they overstepping their bounds, but a lot of their actions are criminal by nature, too. And I think we need to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. I pray for Dan Bongino. I pray for these people they're working on this. Kash Patel. I publicly endorsed Kash Patel in writing, and I think he's going to get to the bottom of it. A lot of people are critical of him now because, hey, there's several things that have happened. For example, he came on, mainstream TV, radio, whatever you want to say, news, and said, hey, I guess Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Dan Bongino doubled down on that, and I don't buy that that's true. I don't buy that. I think that somebody got to Jeffrey Epstein because I believe he'd be too afraid to kill himself. I don't think he was a real man. I think he was a protected, coddled person, and so I believe somebody got to him. But hey, right now they're telling us a different story.
I heard it. I don't buy it either. So maybe they buy it, or maybe they're keeping it secret for a reason and it's going to come out later. I don't know. But apparently, based on the intel that they're getting, it just seems too hard to believe. I mean, come on. How does the guy fall asleep and, the cameras go out just at the point where the guy hangs himself? I don't buy any of it. There's no such thing as coincidence like that.
and there are consequences. And so here's my response. Let's not debate what happened to Jeffrey. Let's say that he killed himself or somebody else got to him. Who knows? And let's say we'll never get to the bottom of that. Okay, fine. Let's start to say this. Who's alive that was connected to Epstein that literally is a criminal that needs to be exposed and prosecuted? That's where we need to go. And that's maybe why they're saying this. They're just like, hey, you know what? Go with the mainstream press narrative on that. Who cares? Because in the end of the day, if he's really dead, hey, you can't do, dead people don't talk. Go ahead and skip the break, will you? This is just too good. Sam Anthony with me, everybody. yourNEWS.com. Check it out. We'll get into more details. But all I'm telling you is maybe they're just saying, hey, who cares about that point? Capitulate on it. But now let's dig up this list of connected people. These people need to go down for their criminal activities too. And all you got to do, as you mentioned, either shut off the money or in this case, follow the money. Hey, if you're connected to Jeffrey Epstein and we follow the money, we're going to hit pay dirt, Sam.
I agree, but do you think they kept all that information? I mean,
No, they've already had time to delete all this stuff.
Exactly. So, you know, what information do you have? You know, we were kind of under the understanding that, you know, that Epstein was somebody that worked for the CIA and he gathered all this information so they could use it against people, right? So they had videos of everything.
I think that's all correct.
And so that being said, this stuff will be damaging to a lot of people, like the Clintons, for starters. How many Hollywood people were there? So I don't see, if they had this information, they would be crucifying people right now. There'd be no reason to even wait, but it's not happening. So did somebody delete all that information? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, and let's find out who did, and let's basically put them under the penalty of perjury and everything else up on the stand. Let's quiz them. I don't believe, even if they've deleted a lot, I don't believe that there's no way to connect the dots. I think there is. And I'm telling you right now, you can call me a citizen journalist, a redneck, whatever you want to call me. But guys like us can dig and pull on strings and get to the bottom of a lot of things. I'll give you one example to make the point. Bill Clinton said, hey, I didn't even really go on Lolita. Then it turned out he lied. He went on the plane. Then he said, I only went on it a couple of times, but nothing happened. And then we find out he went on it a bunch more times. That stuff's already been exposed. So you know what? You're literally, as president of the United States, while you're president, lying to the American people. Then after, as a former president, you're lying to the American people about the truth of that. That alone is a serious problem. Let's start there and pull on strings, follow the money. What you'll find out is women and dope and children and all this stuff mixed together. Pretty soon, Pizzagate ain't such a farce anymore. And maybe it's not in the restaurant they told you it was. Can you go there? There's nothing, and it's a big old nothing burger. But the truth is, there's mojo behind that. And we need to dig and pull on strings. Don't you think we can get more answers than we think?
I totally agree with you, but don't forget the women who came forward and said they had sex with these people as children.
And then the Me Too movement says you better believe them.
Yeah, right. Unless you're.
Where are they now?
Right. Yeah.
See, this is the kind of stuff.
I agree. Look, we're both on the same page. I mean, you know, right now we have a Justice Department that is headed by a guy that's supposed to be, you know, on the side of truth. Let's hope that he could put all this information together so we could at least come out and the American people could find out the truth about what happened. I mean, that's really what this is all about. I mean, you know, it's not a far stretch to say that the reason they were going over there because this kid was a known pedophile and a child sex trafficker, and he's got photos with all these different people with all these children, and the children come forward as adults say, yes, he made me have sex with them. It's not a hard stretch to figure out that the reason they went there was to have sex with young kids. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And so I would basically take the list of known associates. I think we can at least get that far. I don't think they can destroy all that. I think there's too much evidence, too many lists, too many people. And let's put every one of these clowns on the stand.
I'm on the same page with you there. Let's hope that they get to the point where this happens. You know what I really wonder is when you get into all this and you see what Doge is doing and they're going to different departments and they're finding all this corruption. And like you heard, you know, the one kid say it's like throwing bars off the Titanic, right? Gold bars off the Titanic. There are so many transactions that are just literally trillions of dollars have been given away and stolen. how do you track it all to find every nickel, Sam?
Well, you can't, and you never will. But what you can do is start prosecuting people to the fullest extent of the law. And so, an example is this: hey, who helped fuel Jeffrey Epstein's, coffers? You can follow that. There's banking transactions. You can't delete this stuff all over the world, and so you can use witnesses and testimony and track money. And I think they can document way more of this than we think they can. I don't care if Pam Bondi got snookered and she thought she had the goods and she was going to release it, and then the FBI lied to her. Look, who in the FBI just lied to her right now? Heads roll for that stuff. Let's start there. We can start with the small stuff and then just build our case as we go, following the money, following the transactions, following the associations, putting people on the stand. People will sing like birds, sir.
Oh, no question. There's nobody that's going to sing more than these rats, man. When they get caught, and that ship is sinking, these people are going to be screaming at the top of their lungs, look at him, he made me do it. It's all going to happen. The question is, when's it going to start? And if it doesn't happen in the next year and a half after basically, I'll call it almost half of Trump's term, chances are it's not. But we have to be hopeful that it is. And I'm hopeful that it is. I think the whole tide's turning, and eventually you're going to see a lot of perp walks. What I'm really hoping is it's going to be most of Congress. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. Anybody that's tied to any of this stuff needs to go. I would much prefer to have 0 people in Congress and have it be nothing more than accountants just accounting for all the money that comes in, and let the states make the decision on what laws they want to have versus top-down governance. I don't believe that works. It's just
let's be clear.
What's that?
Let's be clear. Congress right now is slow walking everything Trump's trying to do. They, in the public opinion polls, their thumbs up, Donald go. But really, in truth, they're undermining everything Trump's trying to do. Do you realize how many bills they've passed or put on Trump's desk since they started this term? It's been 5 months almost, and they put 5 bills in front of him. One of them was to spend us into oblivion.
Right. If I was him, I would just get up and say, look, don't bother doing anything. You don't do it right anyway. I'll take care of the rest. Thank you for your time. That's it. To me, look, I'm over it. I don't know about everybody else, but I think these people are absolutely worthless. And they haven't fixed any problem. And the reason they never fixed the problem is because they didn't want to, Sam. Okay? That's it. I have conversations with people. And, being in the business I'm in, it leads me to so many different places. And I had a conversation the other day with a woman who has a nonprofit, and she shapes public policy, not only on a federal level, on a national level, but on a local level. And so they're heavily involved with this organization in like every single race that's running, from like a mayor's office to not, I don't think they go down to city council meetings, but, the senators, congressmen, state, local municipalities. And her organization, I said, how many people do you have in your organization? She said 5 million. And I said, holy crap. I said, so you're actually doing this at a grassroots level? She said, yes. And she goes, here's the problem. The problem is, if you take your foot off the gas with any one of these politicians, she said, they automatically just kind of sink back into the swamp and become swamp creatures again. You have to constantly be in their face to get stuff done. Otherwise, they'll just go in the other direction and whatever way the water's taking them. You believe this stuff? I mean, this is what you're dealing with.
It's the blackmail is what causes that all to occur. Jeffrey Epstein was the ultimate blackmailer, and everybody used him for that purpose. And that's why I'm convinced we can tie this back to individuals. We can tie this back to money and transactions. We can tie this back to criminals and prosecute. It just takes mojo. It takes a commitment, and it takes, people that aren't afraid. Because, hey, Jeffrey's gone. You kind of wonder, did he take himself out, or did he get taken out? Well, could it be me that gets taken out next? And, we've got to basically make the fear of consequences greater than the fear of these clowns that have blackmailed them all. I mean, that's really what's undergirding this whole thing, right?
Yeah, I saw some, think of the Clintons, and they talk about a crime organization, right? And all the money these people made where people donated. So, Russians gave her $500 million right before she signed off that they get how much uranium from us or plutonium, whatever the hell it was. I mean, and you can't dot the I across the T on this one, and nobody investigates it, comes up with nothing. And, and then all the people that are dead around that family. And I was watching something today where apparently the kid committed suicide by shooting himself in the chest and then afterwards hanging himself. So I don't know if that's true or not.
We laugh so we don't cry, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of the bottom line. Sam with me, Sam Anthony with yournews.com. Sam, do you have time to stay with me next hour?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
I do.
The reason why is what you're doing is so revolutionary. I really want to highlight it and let people know how they can get involved. We're running out of time faster than I want to because there's so much to this, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Anthony, my guest, he's the founder, the president of what's called Nico Ventures, and that's a parent company that controls yournews.com. Yournews.com allows you to become a citizen journalist on the local all the way to the national level. I write articles for them, and I put up all kinds of content along with many others. But you can invest in Your News. You can be involved in it. You can help with advertising it. There's a lot of things we can do. This is where, in my mind, we've changed the game. Before it used to be top down. Now it's Americans first, and we can talk to the whole world. And we can either have short articles, we can have long form, articles. That's where people really get educated. And we don't have a gatekeeper. Now, Sam does have a general, code of ethics that says, hey, you got to be factual and you got to do the who, what, when, where, why of a story. So he wants you to have your ducks in a row. But anybody can participate in this and really, via yournews.com, create almost, in a sense, column by column, your own coverage of local, national, whatever issues you choose. So I'm calling BS on the Joe Biden administration. They lied to us, knew full well he was completely sick, and covered it up. And before you blame the Democrats, Mike Johnson, literally after the fact, after Joe stepped down, Mike Johnson said, oh, yeah, I knew a year ago he was hating it. He couldn't even put two sentences together. And so my question is, Mike Johnson, why did you stay silent? Why did you sit on the sidelines and not only allow him to continue when he was not even capable of doing so, but you furthermore let him even run again? I mean, if it was up to Mike Johnson, he would have kept his mouth shut and Joe might even be president again. Now, I don't think that's reality. I'm just saying Mike was willing to let that happen. This is supposedly the Christian Speaker of the House, Sam.
Yeah.
On the opposite ticket, right?
Yeah.
So they're all in bed together. The deep state's got us all.
Yeah, and they're all afraid to say something because the media is going to come down on them. Nobody. When I say nobody, there are people in there that just don't care. But for the most part, they don't want bad press, and that's where like the conversation I was having with the woman with the $5 million. She goes, I said, I know what you need. You need to to shine the light on the corruption and to start. You need media coverage, and that's what I'm going to provide for you, not only on a national level, but on a local level. So I said to her, can you find at least 300 news reporters that are part of your organization that could come out with articles? And I'm telling you this because it fits in with the whole Mike Johnson and Joe Biden thing, because they don't want press, bad press. And all you do is you write an article, and the article could be factual, but then not only do you share it with the community that they represent, but you send it to their office and everybody in their office, and you will get their attention. And so that's what Mike Johnson doesn't want. He doesn't want the media coming after him. Now the conservative media would have championed his cause and said thank you, but the mainstream media would have just lambasted him and said he's a conspiracy theorist and he really needs to step down. That's the problem you're facing. All that stuff's going away.
The new media is indeed taking center stage, ladies and gentlemen. It's Liberty Roundtable Live. I've got Sam Anthony, my guest. He is the CEO and president of Nico Ventures, the parent company at yournews.com. You can invest in Your News. We'll tell you about that next hour. You can become a citizen journalist, and you can focus all the way from the local to the national to the world stage with hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. All you got to do is get the who, what, when, where, why, how parts of the story right. Put a couple of fun tidbits in there to make the story flow, and you've become the next citizen journalist. Hang tight, more in seconds. Sam Anthony on your radio. God save our republic.